component. Now we're going to have to build our next one, which is secured debt. So we'll have a look here for secured debt. The main difference here is that we want to get the start date of when they began, when they got their loan. What's cool with that, and what I'm kind of trying to decide, is if I should calculate things from where they currently are in their loan, or if we could get their start loan details. But if we do the start loan details, then we can use Mortgage Calculator to calculate exactly how much debt they would be owing right now on the mortgage. And I kind of like how that would be a bit more accurate in our calculations to show when they would be done. So I'm going to try it this way. If it gives me issues later on, I might switch to just saying, what's your current mortgage balance? How many years do you have left? That's kind of the thing, is that the person will have to decide, or is it more difficult to know how many years they have left on their mortgage, or what their start date is. For me personally, I know my start dates of my mortgage, but I don't know how much time I have left on the mortgage. So let's try it like that. The difference, we have a start year now. Okay, so that's a new item that we're going to have to add to our details about each liability. We're going to have a start year. We've already got amortization and interest rate, and then balance. I like the name mortgage balance. Yes. Okay. So then, and then I might have it switch so that if they clicked like vehicle, it would say vehicle loan balance rather than mortgage balance. But we will have a look at that in a moment. So where are we here? First thing we want to do, we're going to, I'm just going to delete, this is just a QuickTime video from before my last one. So I'm going to open that up. Now, when we click next, we want to come into secured debt. Okay. Where are we? Now I'm going to create a new file called secured debt. And I'm going to copy everything from unsecured. So the reason why I so badly want to have this all as one component is they're so similar that often I would go in and I might make a little change to the height of one, and then it'll be so difficult to have to go to each one and make those changes. So if I could have one perfect component, it might be bigger, but if it had all the details, then if I change it, then it's always going to be the same. So I really want to figure out how to do that. But for now, we're just building it one at a time. So I'm going to paste this. This is all the details from unsecured debt. The difference here now is that we're adding a start date. Now, I do not have a component that brings in a date, or a UI element that brings in a date. So I might have to build that after this. And so for now, I'm just going to implement my year intake. But the thing with calculating somebody's mortgage payment is I need to know their start date specifically. I can't just know the year. So I'll need to make sure that it's specific. But for now, we'll just bring in the start date bar, or not bar, input field. The name is start date. The label is amortization. Okay, let's see. Yeah, no, there we are. And I'm gonna take these out. Now I'm gonna go into my UI element, into input, number input. Was it number input? No, I think in just regular input. Did I have a date option? Maybe select. I built a select, so I'll just show you what it looks like. If I go into my onboarding, which is still a little bit of a mess because I didn't fully finish it, but we'll pop back. So here we are. What year were you born? So you can click here, it brings a nice drop down. I really hate the pre-built HTML drop downs, especially for dates, but unfortunately I'm going to have to use that if I want a date input. But I just wanted a nicer looking one that looks cleaner and unique. So here they could select the date going this way. So we're going to put this in for now, and then we will figure out how we're going to get the exact date. But yeah, so that's what we're putting in. We got to get to our secured debt. So I haven't linked in secured debt. I also need to change the color. I wanted to make it so that it's a little darker of a color. It seems like this is freezing on me. fill. So I'm going to grab this color, and I'm going to go into my themes. So where is my theme? And I'm going to add a dark, because I don't have a darker version of salmon, but I'm going to put this down. I'm going to call this dark salmon. We'll see how much darker it is. It looks a bit darker. Cool. Now I'm going to go into my secured debt. And we're going to be using dark salmon in the header. Then I want to go into my wizard, and I'm going to bring down the unsecured debt, but I'm going to make it secured debt. So I hope that it's not confusing to you, all these financial terms as well as coding terms. I bet that might be a little much to be learning. Sorry about that if it is. But basically, secured debt is debt that's secured against a house or a vehicle. So typically the interest rates are a lot lower, but it's kind of important to differentiate the two, secured and unsecured debt. So count equals 5. I'm going to go up into my set state, so my base state up here. I'm going to change it to 5. So every time I refresh, that's the page that we're going to be on. And then I'm going to change the name to secured debt. I'm going to change this one to secured debt. So we'll see how that looks. It always does this. So I'll just talk about this a little bit while that's loading. You can see here the repetition that we have, which is pretty terrible. We got all these different components. So I'm going to be thinking of a way to make this a formula that does a map, probably, and then still changes according to the count. But I just really don't like having this repetition of code. Ideally, in my dream, my favorite thing is when I can have a component where the code all fits in the screen, so you can just see everything about it right there. And in this case, there's quite a bit of scrolling you got to do. So we'll think about that. So in here, we've got unsecured debt, then we go to secured debt. So I need to change a few things on that. Where are we? So we got to call this secured debt. And example is mortgage. Oh, and then I have a important function that connects the secured debt to their assets. And I'm going to do that a little bit later because it uses selectors to look at the assets and then build out a list. Actually, you know what? Let's do that right now. I've already built that in regular net worth. So in here, I think it was in pop-up. No wizard. Control panel. No wizard. Okay. So here's what I did. I built something called a property names selector. So let's go down into Redux. So we have our reducer. This is where we're storing all of our state. We have our actions that are going into the reducer, changing the state and adding things to it or deleting things. So those are written right here in actions. Now in selectors, ignore the overwhelming amount of code here. Don't worry about any of that. But I have one that is called the property names selector. So I recommend watching some of the videos on selectors by Yiwa, Andrew Nague's buddy. He does a good job of explaining what we're doing here. But basically, we're taking the net worth reducer. So we're taking this and then all the stuff that we've added to it. So then we're going through and we're doing object.values. So I'm converting this object into an array, and it's easier to work with arrays sometimes, but for the most part we need to keep our state as an object so that we don't have to filter every time that we add or remove things. We don't have to check every item in the array. So that's just kind of a whole different topic. But anyways, we're converting it into an array. Then we're going into the asset section. So we've turned the asset section, all of these. So if there's a bunch of stuff in here, we've turned it all into one array by doing object.values. Then we filter it. And we're saying if the category or the subcategory is property, then map it and give us the label. So we're doing a map if it fits the category. So then what we do is we get this neat little array that is all the labels. So if I go into the property part here, so we would be putting in labels like my house, my primary residence, my rental property, if you have different properties, or my Mazda 3, or things like that. So suddenly now we've got this neat little array that has just the labels. Now, in secured debt, I want to pull in that from the selector. So I'm going to import, what was it called? So you can see like the power of selectors, they're just incredible. I'm sometimes afraid that there's other things like selectors that are out there that I don't know about that I should be using, but for now I just got to be happy with what I know. So back to secure debt. So I'm importing the property name selector. So basically what I've done is I've run this code, but it's just running it one time by having it be a selector. If I could pull the code, I could pull in the net worth reducer and I could run this code here, but then on every single change it's going to rerun that code, so it just starts to cause a lot more lag, whereas with the selector it's using memoization to just run it once, which is pretty awesome. So it's from Redux net worth, and then net worth selectors. So I've got this property names selector. So now in here, instead of giving this array, I'm going to give the array of all the property names that the person has added in. Now initially it might be 0, so that might give us an issue. Then I also want to give them the option to say, no, it's not related to any of these. So I'm going to go .concat, so we're concating to the array, and I'm going to say none of these. See if that works. Okay. Ooh, I wonder where that happened. Secure debt. How did I have an unterminated string? Oh, I think that's just from when I was calling the selector, maybe. Ooh, that's a scary one. Oh, I didn't pass the selector in, so I was like, what is this? So where were we? So I'll show you how to get a selector in. So I imported it up here. Totally my bad. Then down here, I'm going to create property name selector. Now the difference between this and a Redux piece of state is that we pass the state into it, and it's basically a formula. So I'm going to pass state into it. Then it's going to run that super awesome formula that we made. But now it's being passed into our component via map state to props. So if I go up in here, I'm going to use my fancy destructuring. We've got the property names selector. Nice. So where are we now? So we should have it, and we'll see if that worked. So we've just got none of these. But if we go into property, and I'm going to say my greenhouse, and we'll just throw in some random numbers here, blah blah blah. We add it. Now, it's not working. That's not good. So I'm going to just confirm that we properly added it. So we've added my greenhouse is in the assets, so we know it's there. Now, something is wrong with our selector then, and I'm just going to deal with it live with you guys following me because this is what I do all the time. So it's not getting it. Let's console.log our selector. See if it's getting anything. It's giving us some errors. Oh, I don't like those. So it's just giving us an array of nothing. Okay. So if we go into our selector where we wrote that, so net worth reducer dot asset dot filter subcategory is property. Now, do I have a subcategory of property in the assets? So I'm just going to go back into here, property, investment assets, secured debt, and I'm just going to go back to net worth reducer. I just pressed Command Z, that's why it switched back so suddenly. So we're looking at the net worth reducer, and we're looking to see if asset has a subcategory called property, and I did not do that. So this comes back to an issue, something that I should have done a little while ago, but I didn't link it up so that when I select primary residence, it's not setting it in the value. So what it should be doing, we're going to go into property asset. I want to have a subcategory. And initially it's nothing. Oops, that's not spelled right. Now we want down here on select of the choose one. So this is our choose one, which is our little drop down here. So when we click this, we want it to set to what type that is. We either want it to be property. I think we'll just call it property. Them all property, because they're all essentially property. Okay, so in this case, the set value, what is it taking? What if I just said, what do I have here for set value? So this is a nested value. So the problem is we can't use this formula because it wants to go into the nested area here. It's set up to go in and go through these two sections, but we just want to set it on the higher level. So I might just try using set state, which is right here in our use state. So let's just see if this works. So I'm going to go set state, and I'm going to make a copy of state. Wait, it's just copy of state. Oh, where am I? So set state, dot 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 state. I like to think of dot 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 as a camera. That's taking a picture of everything. Okay, so dot 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 state. Then we're going to change. We're going to make a subcategory. And this is now property. So this is super nice that we can fit it in here right now. That's great. But later, if we want to make our one perfect component, then we will have to make this formula. We can't just hard code in subcategory property like that. We're going to have to figure out how we will change it. One way is with maybe the name of the item we're passing in. No, I'll have to figure that out. Okay. So subcategory property. Let's go in here. I'm going to add a new thing. Let's say we own the White House. That'd be pretty cool. There we go, blah, blah, blah. And so when we click this, we're setting it as property. So now in our system, we know that this is property here. I click add. I'm going to check out my, first I'll look at my reducer to see if that was stored in state properly. So we have this new one, the White House. Subcategory is property. Cool. So now the moment of truth. We go over into here. Boom. There we go. We've got the White House and none of these. So what this means is now when we're doing a secured debt, the person can say, oh yeah, this is connected to the White House. White House mortgage, you might call it. But it's really important that we do that because when we're calculating the net worth of the person, we need to take we need to find the equity. So the White House minus their mortgage to figure out how much equity they have in that component. So that is that. Now we, for secured debt, so we might take out the monthly payment and put in that date adder. but I think I should probably stop now because this video is getting pretty long.